Welcome to The Explainer. Now, when you humans think of Paris, you immediately picture the dazzling city of light, right? But as a Parisian cat who spends a lot of time prowling the cobblestones, I can let you in on a little secret. There is a whole other world down there. We're going to dive into this explainer and explore the very real, very hidden empire of death resting right beneath the paws and feet of millions. If you were to sneak down the 130 spiral steps today, which honestly is a great workout for the hind legs, you'd be greeted by this totally chilling inscription. Stop! This is the Empire of Death. It's this wild boundary line, right? It perfectly separates the sunny, bustling city us cats love to nap in from the totally silent world below. 6 million. Yeah, you heard me right. That is how many human souls rest down there in the underground ossuary. To put that into perspective, that's actually more than twice the city's current living population of humans and animals combined. Down in those tunnels, the dead vastly outnumber the living. But you know, how did so many souls end up packed into the dark beneath the French capital in the first place? Well, to understand that, we need to jump into our first section, a public health crisis. Picture this. It's the spring of 1780. Imagine being a cat, just trying to take a cozy nap in a Parisian basement. For centuries, humans had been burying their dead right in city center plots, like the Saints Innocent Cemetery. Well, these plots were so incredibly overflowing that after some heavy spring rains, the cemetery walls literally collapsed. Humans, cats, stray dogs, everyone woke up to an absolute nightmare of mud, water, and, well, let's just say uninvited skeletal guests pouring right into their living rooms. This gruesome, totally horrific event triggered widespread panic over something called miasma. See, during the Enlightenment, doctors didn't quite get germs yet. They honestly believed this noxious, bad air, this miasma, was spreading fatal diseases like the plague. The horrible stench from those overflowing cemeteries was seen as a direct, airborne threat. It was such an urgent public health crisis that King Louis XVI actually ordered all public cemeteries closed immediately to protect the living. So what was the fix? That brings us to part 2, moving 6 million souls. Now, beneath Paris sat this ancient network of Lutetia limestone mines. We're talking 45 million years old geologically, and they'd been mined since the 15th century to build the city above. A human named Charles-Axel Guillaumot, the very first Inspector General of Quarries, got the massive job of using these abandoned tunnels, which were 20 meters deep. But first, quarrymen had to actually fortify these crumbling spaces so they literally wouldn't cave in under the weight of the city. It was a massive undertaking. After the Saints Innocent Cemetery closed in 1780, it took years just to prepare the mines. By 1786, Guillaumot finally began the transfers. Out of respect and, to avoid absolutely terrifying the public, millions of bones were moved in covered wagons in the dead of night, accompanied by chanting priests. Spooky, right? At first, it was honestly just a dumping ground. It wasn't until 1809, under a guy named Charles-Axel Guillaumot, that the site was transformed into the organized artistic ossuary that opened to the public. We really got to appreciate Guillemot's incredible engineering legacy here. He mapped the unseen world beneath Paris and quite literally saved the city from collapsing in on itself. If you trot down there today, you can still see his original tracking codes engraved on the stone, like 65G 1781, marking his exact work sites. Because he hollowed out and fortified this massive, sprawling network, the bedrock of modern Paris is basically Swiss cheese. And trust me, my local mouse buddies absolutely love it. It's also exactly why the center of Paris doesn't have those massive, heavy skyscrapers you see in other big human cities. Which leads us to a really fascinating chapter. Let's look at Section 3, Equality in Death. When Charles-Axel Guillaumot took the reins, he decided the dead deserved way better than just being tossed in a heap. He brought in traditional quarryman techniques called haza aguge and bourrage. Basically, they built these incredibly intricate 50-centimeter thick facades out of long femurs and skulls. They meticulously stacked them like bricks to hold back the chaotic piles of smaller bones behind them. It completely turned a giant mass grave into a striking piece of macabre architecture. And get this, the bones making up those walls belong to some incredibly famous figures. Though, I gotta say, they all look pretty identical now. You've got Enlightenment philosophers like Montesquieu, fierce French revolutionaries like Maximilien Robespierre, royalty-adjacent folks like Madame de Pompadour and even Madame Mozart. Their remains were all mixed in right alongside over 1,000 victims of the bloody 1792 September massacres, plus millions of everyday working-class humans. This brings us to a super powerful philosophical takeaway from the catacombs, beautifully captured by a 19th century photographer who called it the confused equality of death. Down here, earthly identities are totally stripped away. Nobles, commoners, tyrants, revolutionaries, they all rest completely anonymously, side by side. You really can't tell a king from a peasant when you're just looking at a massive wall of identical skulls.
That unique atmosphere of equality and stark mortality turned the site into an instant cultural phenomenon. Even way back in the Victorian era, human tourists flocked underground in their fancy coats to tour these exact paths. We're talking historical giants like Napoleon III and Francis I of Austria, and the fascination absolutely hasn't faded. Today, the official museum draws around 2,000 visitors every single day.
But that's just the stuff they let you see. Time for Section 4, the Forbidden Labyrinth.
So, the official museum route is only about 1.5 kilometers long. The actual labyrinth, it's estimated to be between 250 to 300 kilometers long. It covers 1/10 of the entire footprint of Paris, and it constantly sits at a chilling 14 degrees Celsius. It's a terrifying pitch-black maze. Sometimes the ceiling is just overhead, and other times humans literally have to crawl on their bellies just to squeeze through. Just consider the extremely eerie tale of Philibert Aspère. Back in 1793, he wandered into the tunnels looking for a convent's hidden stash of chartreuse liquor. Sadly, his candle went out, and in that total, absolute darkness, he just couldn't find his way back. His body was discovered 11 years later, remarkably close to an exit he simply couldn't see. It's a really stark reminder that if you wander off, even a cat with perfect night vision might not find their way out of this labyrinth.
Because of serious dangers like that, it's been strictly illegal to enter the unmapped tunnels since 1955. But come on, that hasn't stopped a vibrant modern subculture from taking root down there. You essentially have two main human groups. First, the cataphiles. These are respectful urban explorers, historians, and artists dedicated to studying and preserving the underground space. On the flip side, you have the cataclasts. These are vandals who damage the heritage sites and use the tunnels for illicit stuff. There's even a dedicated underground police force, the cataflix, who patrol the darkness with flashlights to chase out the rule breakers.
And the life happening in that modern underworld, it is truly wild. I'm talking fully equipped secret cinemas discovered by police, illegally hooked up to the city's power grid. There are pop-up restaurants where you might find an elaborate candlelight dinner hosted by exclusive exploration groups like Watto. It's basically a thriving secret city beneath the city. Meanwhile, above board, officials are constantly working to preserve the history. In April 2026, the official museum is reopening after a 5-month closure, implementing modern scientific renovations. They're actually fixing collapsed bone walls by hand without modern cement, just to ensure this fragile heritage survives the high humidity for generations to come.
So, I'll leave you with this little thought to chew on. The next time you find yourself strolling the sunny streets of Paris, or maybe watching a fellow cat dash into a hidden cellar, take a moment to look down. Who exactly are you stepping over, and what forgotten stories remain hidden in the dark, silent empire right below your paws? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, stay curious, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Knowledge grows through sharing. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to grow together.